Focus is on the aviation sector as experts continue to express worry as Nigeria and the entire world is hit by the second wave of the COVID-19 pandemic following fresh rise in daily cases. In a new twist, countries across the globe shut their borders to Britain on Monday due to fears about a highly infectious new strain of the coronavirus causing travel chaos and also raising the prospect of food shortages. Days before Britain is set to also leave the European Union, several other nations blocked travel from Britain over the weekend, including France, Germany, Italy, the Netherlands, Austria, Ireland, Belgium, as well as Canada. Now, the implication of these travel restrictions might also have a dire impact on Nigeria's aviation industry as Nigerian airlines and others to recover from the recent closure of the airspace for more than 3 months. Now, for the month of April and June, the International Air Transport Association said Nigerian airlines lost about $2.09 billion. Similarly, ATA also predicted a net loss of $118.5 billion for airlines this year. That's higher than the $4.3 billion it earlier forecast in the month of June in another report in November. Now, the report titled Dip Losses Continuing into 2021 also predicts that a net loss of $38.7 billion will be recorded in the year 2021, higher than the $15.8 billion earlier forecast in June. Well, joining me now in our Lagos studio to discuss this and much more, I have with me Tayo Juri, the CEO of Aglo Support Services Limited. Good to have you on the breakfast show this morning.
Compliments of the season to you.
Same to you. It's quite a bleak situation we have to navigate through at this point in time with the hit of the second wave of the COVID-19. Now, airlines have been managing to survive, but we now have a greater stifle in terms of how operations are going to be. You take a look at what's happening with Britain. So many countries have also shut travels to that place. And now Nigeria is also looking at restricting some trips as well. How do you think we are going to manage through the second wave?
It's a sorry situation. We're already on our knees as in the aviation sector, but now we're having a situation where it's really, really sad, really unfortunate in terms of the second wave. We're trying to curtail the spread due to travel, and aviation has always been that, so not wanting to be the channel for the spread.
Transportation of the spread. Yeah.
So it's just from the lesson learned from what happened in April, it would just be right to not to be once bitten, twice shy, not to let it happen again. So we'll have to see curtailing or banning of travel in the next few days. So we've seen that Saudi Arabia has closed their travel for international travel for 1 week. And you mentioned all the countries that have closed travel to Britain, to the United Kingdom. So you've seen that, and we've seen most likely because of the affinity with the United Kingdom, there's most likely going to be closure in the next few days. How's that going to affect us? We're going to see lots of planned travel now going to be closed from those that were planned to travel to Nigeria prior to this time will now be curtailed. They will be cancelled, and domestic travel will most likely will still operate, but we have a challenge with the number of equipment and traffic that we had in with the equipment for flight operations in Nigeria, which is a huge pathetic issue.
Before we even talk about how much financial losses airlines are going to accrue at this point in time, let's also look at those who are caught in between the web at this point in time. For so many people, they just had quick trips in and out of certain countries, and now there's just an immediate lockdown, and you're also stuck again. A whole lot of monies unplanned for, budgets unprepared for, had to be created. Tell us how do we even navigate through this? Because at the end of the day, we look at the allied industries, tourism, and a whole lot more. The bleed is just way too much. So how do we now start dealing with such situations in Nigeria, in the African continent, and then taking cues from what's happening abroad?
Prior to this time, with the gradual startup, we had what we call lots of bubbles, where there were just travel bubbles, being able to provide a safe corridor for travel, for safe countries to travel to. We did have that, but now this has decimated that process to a great extent. Now those that have traveled and caught in these countries where they have high, let's say in the UK, they're now stuck there, and they're going to be stuck there for a while.
For months.
They're going to be stuck
You
there
never
for a
can
while
tell.
until they actually need to identify, there's scientific evidence to show how the strain travels, how it affects other people, and how it can be mitigated. So all this has to be addressed and identified before normal travel actually starts. Now, layer that on ancillary services, tourism is already in a double-digit low. We prior to in April, we had about 90% loss. At the end of September, it was minus 75% reduction. Now, which is supposed
greater
to be
contraction.
Yeah, which is supposed to be our period where we have lots of travel, lots of tourism, lots of visiting families and friends, holiday travel. That's been curtailed down. We're going to see a bigger dip, and that's going to affect the economy, one, and two, even lots of airlines are going to go bankrupt, unfortunately, and it's going to affect other service providers, in-flight service providers, the fuel marketers, and other service providers.
And also, looking at IATA's projections as well, it titles that dip losses continue into 2021. I think that's just the perfect title to give a narration
That's
to
correct.
what we have going on globally at this point in time. But $38.7 billion now. This is the conservative approach we had earlier on, just a few months ago. Now, do you think we'll see a deeper plunge? What's your forecast in terms of how big the volume of loss would be this time around? We cannot tell exactly what the second strain is going to cause and the impact. We're just having forecasts.
Yes,
Assumptions.
It's forecast, but it's objective forecast, which is driven by numbers and driven by reality on ground. Because we've seen how many of these people travel. How have we seen this travel over a year? And looking at the micro and micro indicators, we're looking at the economy is what drives aviation. Aviation is a function of disposable income. Once there's the COVID issue and there's the economic issue, when a lot of, we have inflation at double digits now, we have lots of companies not producing on 6 cylinders, that's going to drive travel. That's going to affect travel to a great extent. With that affecting travel, people are not traveling. People will not travel in the next 2 quarters. And with us technically being in a recession, we'll not see travel to the 3rd quarter, and then it would affect aviation. But what is the way forward? Is the way forward, even with these challenges and with us being in the dark at this moment, not knowing what the second wave, how it will affect
the
us,
impact.
The impact, is the fact that governments all around the world are supporting the aviation sector. We've been promised about 4 billion naira to the airlines and 1 billion to the ancillary service. We're yet to have that support been disbursed yet, because I've said it sometime whereby we're in a critical stage, and a stage where we need to have that support to actually keep us alive, to keep the airlines and aviation sector alive before the next step. And it's like sustaining them and sustaining the airline and services to keep alive
Do you share the
survive.
sentiment of those that say, well, that effort by government is not enough in terms of the 5 billion naira you're talking about? We're yet to have the funds properly distributed, but the volume of loss is well over 20 billion naira at this point in time. So 5 billion naira can barely attend to anything at all. Less of a scratch.
Nobody has that big fat checkbook. But just like let's have a comparative analysis where we had the 25 billion to the airlines in the US and 9 billion to Lufthansa, and now 6 billion to Air France. We have that fact. They're still grappling with lots of economic challenges, but it's just the sustenance. They're cutting lots of their operational costs. But it's just to sustain the airline through this process. And we just had the Senate in the House of Reps in the U.S. trying to sign another $900 billion bill. That's going to, there's going to be part of that coming to aviation. And that's going to, because aviation
create some relief.
Yes, is a catalyst to the economy. It's able to help us drive. It's a good force. A force for good, rather.
Okay.
And out of this COVID-19, even with the strain, we've seen that the solution and the most obvious solution is the vaccine. The vaccine would only go around the world with aviation. So that's the only opportunity for aviation to grow and bounce back again.
Ty, for the lack of time, we just have to wrap up conversations. But at this point in time, I just want a yes or no answer. Do you think we're going to see mergers in terms of our airlines coming together to form a formidable force? Because now, individually, as units, there are a whole lot of losses they cannot even begin to deal with.
You put me in a corner, no. But we'll see new airlines.
Okay. Thank you very much for your time on the Breakfast Show today.